Warning: this program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for all things Warcraft, with your hosts, Berserker and Navox. This is Unshackled Fury.
It's Monday morning. We're bringing you round 2 of Coffee and Casting, and it's time for this rage-fueled steam engine to leave Furion Station. Welcome to episode 66 of the Unshackled Fury podcast, your uncensored home for all things Warcraft. I'm your host, Berserker. I've got my Valhalla Java at the ready, and with me as always is the Folgers Crystals to my Maxwell house. He is Navox. Welcome back again, sir.
The best part of waking up is Unshackled Fury in your cup.
Bang.
Bang.
Take that to the bank.
Here we go.
Well, here we are again, ready to put our feet in our mouths potentially.
Yeah.
We got an interesting episode this week, and I don't know. We'll see how this goes, but we got a few things to talk about this week that may be of interest to a few folks. But before we jump into all of that, how have you been since the last time we were here?
Well, I've been enjoying my break from raiding and my retirement there, and I've been doing nothing but do dailies nonstop. Like, I thought I was going to take a little bit of a break from WoW, and it's just nothing. I feel like I'll fall behind if I don't keep up with that cloak, and so I logged in and I just make sure that I do my dailies every single day, just so that I have enough, coalescing visions to do the horrific vision, or the coalescing vials to do the horrific visions, and this week I maxed it out, thank God, because it was Orgrimmar. It's a lot easier than Stormwind. My raid team actually, I got to join with them, and we did a full clear, so it was actually kind of fun. I've never done a full clear, so you go into the corrupted zones and then you go to lost zones, and it is tough. Those lost zones they're no joke, but there's a certain pattern you follow around Orgrimmar that's the fastest path, and we did all 4 sections. We killed Thrall, and wow. I got some cool stuff. I got like a rank 2 of some vision or some essences, and upgraded my cloak, got it max level, and I was hoping I could keep going, but it was the max level of 10 this week, so there's that. And next week I'll either sit it out and just collect more visions, because I don't like Stormwind all that much. I'll probably give it a go, but it is getting better and better the more stuff I have on that tree. The more powers that you have, the better it gets, and I'm working on the 3rd thing at the very. I don't know what they're called. I am the definition of a filthy casual at this point. I'm working on the second to last thing in the tree, and I'm only 2 or 3 of that, and it's a DPS speed haste buff thing. It's kind of cool. And
there you go.
Other than that, I've been trying to take a low level tune that I was trying to mimic what it would be like for somebody returning to the game. So I have a boosted, not boosted. I have my Coltiran warrior who's in Prospect, and I try to take him through the cloak entry quest. Oh my God. If you do not have like 400 item level weapons or something, it's tough. If you're just coming back and you don't have the gear to do that stuff.
Yeah.
I blew through it with my main. It's not a problem, but taking somebody who's less than 400 item level through that, it's a little challenging. So I did that on my prot warrior. I'm working on my Frost Death Knight, which turned out to be it's similar to playing a Fury Warrior. It's kind of cool. I like it a lot. So it's kind of neat to just play a different class every now and then. It adds a little different flavor to WoW, and yeah, but other than that, keeping up with the cloak, keep it up with I'll go into a raid every once in a while on a Sunday. That's pretty much been it for me. How about you? How's WoW been for you?
It's been all right, and it sounds like your experience with the horrific visions is getting better.
Yeah, it is.
Because last time you might have made a mess with all of the rage explosions going on about horrific visions and failed runs and its unsatisfying nature, and you put your stamp on it, buddy. But, but it sounds like it's at least getting a little better since the last time we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after we had recorded last, I sort of felt your trepidation. So I actually held off. I didn't do any runs. I didn't do anything, and I was like, man, I'm gonna kind of wait a little bit and see kind of how this goes. And then this week in my raid, I got called out by my buddy Rommel. He's like, hey, you're falling behind, bro. All right, fine. So it was Orgrimmar this week, and I jumped in. I'm not at 10. I'm at 9. I'll work on 10 because I've got enough vessels to do it. But I didn't have any problems. I didn't have any wipes. I do it solo, so probably in my mind that's what helps
the trick.
Yeah. But once I got the pattern in Orgrimmar down of going to this side that I'm running through and going to this side, here's where I need to use my orbs to regain my sanity, all that stuff, I didn't have any problems. Like the first one that I did, it was a little tricky because I popped my first orb a little too soon because I got scared. And I was like, oh, I'm going to run out, and I don't want to do that. But I also forgot that I'd had the revival trait. So if I died, I would have revived anyway and had half sanity or whatever it was, which is, more than I run around with now. So that's great. So I didn't have any of those problems. I was feeling pretty good about it. I'm like, all right, I'm getting up to level 9, rank 9 pretty easy. I've got to do 10 now. But I've already done, I think, one of the 2 runs I've got to do. So far, so good. And I'm enjoying the pace that you have to set. It kind of reminds me of Doom, like the new Doom game in a way, where you're rewarded for your speed. Where you can't just stand there and then hack some mobs and then kind of walk over to the next one and then kind of, take it. Like, you got to get on your mount, run in there, heroic leap, jump into a pile, start getting them going, go to the next pile, grab them, go. I mean, maybe this is, more of the mythic dungeon run technique kind of thing, but I don't do that, so this is kind of newish for me. But I'm digging it. I like them. I still like them. I think it bodes well for Torghast eventually when we get Torghast coming and what that may look like, because those are supposed to change every time we do them. But I like this idea where there's this solo content that we can, farm some things up for. We run them a couple times a week. We get something like I've been getting gear and pets and all kinds of stuff just randomly out of these chests that I'm getting, and it's fun. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that. As far as our raid team goes, we are 11 out of 12 right now.
Nice.
So we're
nice.
Banging on the front door here of N'Zoth's brain, trying to get that sucker down. And that I still maintain this is one of the coolest raid environments we've ever had. Going into Carapace and then into N'Zoth, where you're essentially portaling right into his face, and then you have to fight right there to get into his body, into his brain area. I mean, it's a really cool concept. I'm digging it. I'm having fun there. One of the other things not in game, that happened, and this is something that's a long time in gestation, and we've talked about on here for years about the collector's editions, the hard, the box, the hard, the hardcover books that come with them, the art books and all that kind of stuff. And one of the reasons why I had collected these is, one, because I enjoy the stuff that's in them, so that's that. But two, is that so someday my son and I could look through those art books Well, that finally happened last week. We're on his own. He's sitting in front of my bookcase, and he's kind of looking at the collector's editions, and he's it's that thing where you see, oh, the kid is interested in something. Let's go check it out. I say, hey, buddy, do you want to look at one of these? Yeah. Which one do you want to look at? I want to look at Cataclysm. All right. So we pull out the Cataclysm box, and we open it up, and there's the art book. And then he just sat on the floor and just kind of slowly looked through the book, and he was asking questions about what it was, and I was like, here it is. It's happening. Yeah. It's finally happening. And it was so cool because we've been having conversations ever since about the stuff that he saw, and that was kind of neat. So I did enjoy it.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that you and I kind of get these notes every once in a while about new listeners. So I just wanted to say a general hello to any of our new listeners that may be listening to this episode. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Certainly, we do not have the giant social media apparatus that perhaps exists elsewhere. So, word of mouth is a huge thing for us. And if you're new to the show, or if you've listened to the show for a while and you enjoy what we're doing around here, tell a friend, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your cousin, tell your sister, tell somebody. Go on Reddit, go on the forums, anywhere. Just let folks know. We really appreciate it because, the more you like it and the bigger we grow our community, the more fun we have. So I just wanted to say a quick welcome to folks, and thanks for spreading the word. So this week, we do have a Rage segment, but I also have kind of a comment about our Rage segments before we actually jump into the thing we're going to talk about this week. So why don't we go ahead and jump into that? Let's rage. So Nav, I want to take you back in time. I want to take you back to October of 2015 when this show was born. Go back to the birth of this show. And originally, when I had come up with the concept for this show, I knew that one of the things that I think every show has to have is some kind of a gimmick.
Right.
For me, it was I'm a warrior, we're ragey, I'm always full of things to say. So that seems like a good idea. And we'll kind of follow that vein. And one of the segments that I'll do is sort of my commentary of the week, and it'll be something that I'm raging about, something that I'm just full of vim and vigor about. And sometimes it'll be a tongue-in-cheek item, like the first one that I ever had was about the synth brew goggles that you can get during Brewfest, which still to this day really irks me because it defeats the entire purpose of getting drunk during Brewfest, and that's just cheating and it's wrong. Then there have been some other ones that were a little bit more direct, shall we say. And I think that I and this show had gotten a bit of a reputation out of that. And that's fair. That's fine. That's what it is. That's what it was. But over time, I will admit that the tenor of these rage segments has changed over the years. And this was pointed out in a comment that was made to you recently that I saw on Twitter. This was also brought up to me privately, a comment that somebody had made about, it seems more like these are daily annoyances as opposed to like things that you're really getting raged out about. So I kind of want to take an opportunity here to clue our listeners in to sort of my mindset and why this segment has changed to some degree, because it has, and it has done so intentionally. To tell you folks the truth, a lot of it has to do with the fact there's already a lot of anger and a lot of genuine rage in the world about a lot of things. And over time, I realized that while it may have had some form of catharsis for me, and at times it does, that perhaps I needed to be a little bit more cognizant of where I went and not add too much destructive nature back into the world. And there is one episode in particular that I had done way back when. in which I was pretty direct, and I indeed went after some individuals. And this is the first time I've said this on a recording, but I have since deleted that episode, and I did that some time ago. I didn't say anything about it. I'm telling you folks now for the sake of transparency, because of all the things that I've said and done on the show, that was one where, looking back on it, I really don't stand by it anymore, because I do think that it was unfair, and that the level of venom that I had at the time just wasn't really appropriate. And so as time has gone on, as I've thought about this segment and the things that we've talked about and done, I've tried to tailor it more towards something that we're being, tongue-in-cheek about, or at least we're trying to give some fair audience to. So for the folks that have listened for a long time and said, yeah, they're kind of toning it down, to an extent, yes, I have intentionally toned it down. Because as I have gotten a little bit older, quite frankly, as I've been through some therapy, as we've gone through some other things, I don't feel as though we need to get necessarily to that level every time. There are going to, of course, be times when we get totally spun up and go nuts. And like Nav last week, horrific visions. I mean, that is a forum that we want to have, and that is what we want to be able to do. But you've noticed over time where we haven't always had a rage segment, where there have been episodes where, like, you know what, everything's cool right now, and we're just going to talk about the news. It's those kinds of things. So we're not necessarily going to be changing anything or doing anything different right now than we have been as of late. But because there have been a few comments about this, I thought I'd take an opportunity to address those. Now, let's talk about something that I'm angry about. And that's corruption. Because for the love of God, I can't do the math. Every time I'm looking at my corruption gear, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to add or to subtract or to change the stats on things. I am not smart enough to manage this system. And like reforging before it, I can't balance these stats. I need someone to do it for me. And Nav, you're a smart man. You're a numbers man. Am I alone in this, or am I having to do too much math to manage my gear these days?
I've got 4 or 5 pieces of gear sitting in my bag that I want to put on that are upgrades for me. Tremendous upgrades, like 460 item level upgrades, I think. And I can't put it on because of the corruption level on it. And I have to use the raid bots tool with the corruption slider on it to actually spec my gear out and tell me what to do. And then I'm always afraid to purge the corruption off, because what if Blizzard changes it again this week, and then the thing that I just purged off is better than it was. And yeah, I'm not a big fan. On one hand, I'm not going to hate on the system. I'm not a big fan of it. It's kind of nice to have it's choice. It's just choice. It's like, if you want to have this, there are consequences to having this. So you are going to get an eyeball that spawns, and you better get out of that circle because it's going to nail you, or you're going to get something that chases you if it's, if your corruption's too much. And I think eventually all that stuff's going to be cleansed off of us anyway. The gear is probably going to get all cleansed at some point. And, we can move past this, but it is a form of reforging that I'm not a fan of it. I've gotten real lazy with my gearing strategy, where if it's just a higher item level, I'm just going to put it on at this point. But I'd love to be able to put on some of this corrupted stuff without having to purge it. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not going to, like I said, I don't love it, but I'm not going to sit here and hate on it either. So
yeah, and I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who is not a min-maxer anymore. I'm really not. Like, it's like there was definitely a day when I'm like, oh, I got to get a point here and a point here, and I would have all the tables and graphs and charts and all that.
Yep.
I just can't do it anymore.
Let raid bots do it, man. I would get to raid bots, get one of those subs out there, and just let it do the work for you. Like, your time's valuable. You know, it's let the computer run its magic and say, hey, this is optimal for this point in time with the gear that you've given me to test with. So go that route.
Well, and I've said this before on this show, is that I don't know if it's necessarily a good game design when we have to consult third-party sources to do the thing we got to do.
It's not.
And they have said, now, to be fair, Ian Hazzikostas was interviewed by Warcraft Radio recently. So if you want to see what he had to say, go check out that interview. But one of the things that he did say is that this corruption idea, this system, is only for this patch. So this will not be carried forward or anything like that. So in that sense, I like the concept of, I'm in the Ny'alotha raid, and here comes some gear that's got some voidy stuff on it, and there's another one, and there's another one, and it's got goopy weird stuff on it, and it's making crazy things happen. There's pants with a tentacle coming out of them. Come on now, guys. Those kinds of things. I like that concept. It just seems like it's I'm expected to have to do a lot of other things, and frankly, I'm just too confused. But that's on me. To be quite frank, that's on me, because I'm just too damn lazy, and I just don't want to check it out. I'm like, I don't know. Is this ring good? This looks good. Is this doing a thing? How purple am I becoming? Well, I'm a little bit purple. Well, I guess that's okay. That's my scale. Am I a little bit purple, or do I look like a purple tiger, where there's just these purple stripes just all over me? Because I have raid team members that I don't know how they're able to function. Like, they are nearly in a completely purple shroud.
Yeah.
And you see that they're about to explode at any minute with this void gaudiness, and I'm like, no, bro. I maybe a little bit of purple. That's it. I'm not going full Prince on this thing. So anyway, I think that corruption is an interesting system to a point. But Blizzard, don't make me do any more math. I'm not a math guy. That's why I have a budget office. All right. Well, we have some interesting news items to talk about this week, and one in particular, we put some shout outs to the community, or some call outs to the community to help us out with, to get some feedback on. So we're gonna touch on perhaps a little bit of controversy, but you know what? Like I said earlier, wouldn't be the first time. So why don't we go ahead and jump into our news? So this week, I was originally intending on doing our deep dive into the Activision Blizzard year-end financial wrap-up deal that we talked about on the last episode. To be quite frank, I haven't finished my research on that, so we are pushing that to the next episode. I know you will all be bummed about that, since listening to dry discussion of stocks and projections is the jam for which people come to this show for.
That's right.
I apologize. We're gonna
Let's skip Clark Howard. Come listen to the Unshackled Fury podcast.
Price Waterhouse Coopers ain't got shit on me. Yeah, Unshackled Fury. You have to buy a sponsorship spot on a PGA Tour stop, because that's where we're heading next. Anyway, we'll be pushing that to the next episode. So yes, bring all of your financial notebooks and pens and papers and pencils and everything else, and protractors and compasses or whatever else you will need to do your finances with to the next episode. Episode 68 will be Furious Finances Part 2, and we'll talk about that. But for now, let's move on to something we are actually going to jump into, which is that a new pre-expansion novel was announced.
Yeah.
Shadows Rising, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, has officially been announced. This is going to be authored by Madeline Rue, if I'm saying this name correctly. Not Christy Golden, who I think some of us have become quite accustomed to. But as we talked about before we started recording, Perhaps this is because she's now an employee of Blizzard and oversees not just Warcraft, but the whole house when it comes to creative development. So maybe she doesn't have time, or maybe it's the way that it works out as an employee. Not really quite sure. But this is the pre-expansion novel that we've kind of come to expect right before we dive into whatever the next adventure is. The release date for this one has been given, and it's going to be July 14th, 2020. And when you look at this release date compared to Before the Storm was mid-June. We got BFA in August, so this is looking like maybe a September release for Shadowlands, maybe. Which
That'd be cool.
If we get this and Cyberpunk both in September, you may never see me again.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I may not go outside.
I actually think Cyberpunk's gonna get pushed back again. I think it's going to get pushed back till the Christmas season. So
Really?
The holiday season, yeah, because I think they're waiting for the new Xbox to be released for them to release this title. Because it's a anyway, we're not gonna delve into the Cyberpunk.
We're not a Cyberpunk podcast yet.
We're not a Cyberpunk video game podcast yet.
I'm moving us that way, but not yet.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk. Yeah,
game.
Damn right. Damn right. So we do have that coming. There is a blurb about it. If you want to go out there, you can look up Shadows Rising. And here is essentially what the little preview has to say about the book. The Horde is nothing. With those infamous words, Sylvanas Windrunner betrayed and abandoned the Horde she vowed to serve. The Dark Lady and her forces now work in the shadows as both the Horde and Alliance, including her own sister Ilaria, race to uncover her next move. Struggling to shoulder the crushing weight of leadership, King Anduin entrusts the Void Elf and High Exarch Turalyon to uncover Sylvanas' whereabouts. The Horde now stands at a crossroads. The various factions form a council, leaving the mantle of War Chief to rest. Thrall, Lorthamar Theron, Bane Bloodhoof, First Arcanist Thalisra, and many other familiar faces rise to this new challenge. But the threats are numerous, and the distrust runs too deep. When the council is derailed by a failed assassination attempt on Talanji, the Zandalari Queen and a key ally, Thrall and the rest of the Horde leaders are forced into action. They empower the young troll shaman Zakan, Zappy Boy, still grieving the loss of Varrock Sourfang, with a critical mission to aid Talanji and help uncover the rising threat against her. Meanwhile, Nathanos Blightcaller and Sira Moonwarden have been tasked by the Dark Lady with a terrifying gambit to kill the troll Loa of Death himself, Bwonsamdi. As Zakan and Talanji work to save Bwonsamdi, their journey will be a key turning point in bolstering the Horde against the coming darkness and finding themselves along the way. Failure to save their allies and the trickster god will surely doom them, but through success, they may rediscover what makes the Horde strong. Well, it sounds like we're getting another Horde book.
Yeah.
All right. You know how much I love those. No, all joking aside, these novels, I have always enjoyed them. Going way back, these have always been a big highlight for me. There is for folks that are interested, if they want to get a bit more information, Blizzard Watch has an excerpt exclusive to them, I believe, that goes into a part of the story that I just read about. If you want to go in completely fresh, you don't have, haven't seen anything, don't read it, but you can go to Blizzard Watch, the Shadows Rising little bit that they have. So I think the larger issue that I wanted to talk about here today with you, Nav, is something that came up when this got announced, was that Taliesin and Evitel had tweeted out that, kind of, in their joking sort of way, that people were upset, here's another out of game ancillary item being used to describe what's going on in the story. And, people seem to be fairly split about this, I guess. I retweeted that from our show account because you know what? I totally agree with them. I think it's great. And if you have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you, because I think it's wonderful that they are growing all of the various avenues that they can to tell these stories, because I don't think there's enough room in game to do it. So I'm fully for it. But for you, Nav, coming back to this conversation, where do you stand on having books and comics and audio stories and all of these other things to fill in the story in game? Should they focus more of that in game, or do we like the path that we're going down?
When I was the first book that I read was it wasn't Before the Storm, it was the one transitioning Mop to Warlords of Draenor.
War Crimes.
War Crimes. And I listened to that novel, and I was like, I thought to myself, okay, well, why didn't they just tell the story in game? But then I listened to it again, and I really enjoyed the fact that they covered a lot. They bridged the two expansions together with that novel. Mm-hmm. And that has been an ongoing, that's been the new development and so on and so forth at this point. And maybe they did that earlier with prior books, but that was my first interaction with a Warcraft novel, was that War Crimes book. The next one was Before the Storm. And
Illidan.
I'm sorry, was it Illidan?
Yeah, we had Illidan for Legion, and then we had Before the Storm for BFA.
Okay, see, I didn't do the Legion one. I don't know. I didn't read that one at all.
It was pretty good.
I'll have to go back and listen to it. I liked Before the Storm. I liked War Crimes, and what I'm getting, my point is, I actually do enjoy having the novel outside of the game. I don't want to spend every waking moment in front of my PC reading stuff. I want to be able to maybe take a lunch, listen to it on my headphones while I'm eating lunch outside, enjoying the outside world, or on my drive into work when I'm not listening to podcasts. I like to listen to audiobooks. I don't tend to sit down and actually read the books. It's just the type of person I am. I like to listen to the books. And then maybe I'll go back and read them also, because I'm still making my way through Arthas. I haven't even finished Arthas yet.
You filthy casual.
It's yeah. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this medium. I'm really interested to see where this is going, because the author that they picked for this wrote the Asylum series, and I don't know a lot about it, but from reading the reviews, it's a dark psychological, thriller type based set of novels. So it's really going to set that tone for Shadowlands. It's not going to be, oh, hey, everybody's happy, everybody's getting along. No, you're going into, it honestly, without getting too cliche, you're going into the shadow of Valley of Death here with the Shadowlands.
Yeah.
It's, so they want it to take on that feel of mystery, and I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm really okay with them keeping this a thing, because I also like that it gives us a little bit of a gauge of when we can expect the game to be released. It kind of gives us a little marker. So,
and there was some concern I saw in the community coming out of BlizzCon about, they didn't show us very much about Shadowlands. Is there a threat that this doesn't come out till 2021? If they're releasing this book in July, I'm pretty sure we're getting it a few months after that. Like they won't tip their hand on the story that soon, because they could push it out if they wanted to. So
yeah.
But I have made no secret of my unabashed love of the pre-expansion novel. I think it's great. I have seen some criticisms about War Crimes in particular, which I think I'll give you this, in that the whole explanation of how Garrosh did what he did to open the portal and get back to Draenor, and the Bronze Dragon flight and the hourglass time changing thing that we had. There was somewhat of a convoluted story in there that was only told in the novel, and that could be confusing for people coming in. So I will grant you that. If
No, that was.
if it's that confusing and there's no help in game, that can be tough to go, okay, well, wait a minute. How do we go from the Vale of Eternal Blossoms and the Siege of Orgrimmar to like what? Like how did
to an image?
I'll give you that.
To a snippet of time.
Can be tough, but I do think now this is what 6 years removed. I think that they've learned from that.
Yeah.
So my hope is that will continue for Shadowlands, for this Shadows Rising book, is that they'll put what they need to put in the novel to keep things interesting, to move the story forward, but not so much that when we show up in Shadowlands, we'll be like, what the, huh? Who? What?
Right.
Where?
Yeah.
But I think at this point, we're all pretty clear why we're going there. So it'll probably be more about, what's happening in the intervening time and maybe why some characters aren't there or where they've been, because you know how it is in game. I think the balance is this, and see if this tracks for you. Is you see a character in game or you read a quest text and they reference something briefly and then you move on, right? Like there's some kind of, we have to do this thing to stop this thing from happening. What can happen in a novel is they fill in all that backspace as to what happened before that or why this thing is happening or whatever it is, but you don't necessarily have to know that to get the story and move on to that next beat.
Right, yeah.
Right? So, but I like the fact that, what you were talking about with this author is that it seems like we are going to a dark place. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, death and assassinations, and it looks like Anduin is still... that's struggling to shoulder the crushing weight of leadership. I'm worried about Anduin, man. I am worried. I have been worried. I continue to be worried. Like, it's just... I feel like we're in for something.
You're thinking another death of an alliance leader?
Not necessarily, but I could see where he makes some kind of a turn. It's not like we haven't seen it before, but I don't know, man. Like, he's just been too good for too long, and you can see, like, bit by bit, he's kind of losing it.
Yeah, the pendulum can only swing so far one way. So, yeah.
I don't know.
I liked, and something that I did like that in... I wanted to go back to the books, the way they tell a storyline. Mm-hmm. We got Kalia Menethil from... she's been in other books, but she came back in Before the Storm.
Yeah.
And her story was told in Before the Storm, and had you not listened to it or read the book, you wouldn't know what has transpired with her in game and why she looks like this, purple soulless thing with white eyes. So, so I kind of like... I like where I like how they tie the story in the game into the book, but it's not a direct one-to-one. Okay, well this is where things pick up, and so I don't know. It's I'm happy with that route, and I'm interested to see what happens after we destroy this old god, and because there's a reason why we're in the Shadowlands. Is it because of our actions? Did we end up actually? In the end, did we end up actually harming more than helping in the grand scheme of things? And that's, it's because you've got the big sword that I hope we see something done with that big sword. I don't know why I'm fixated on that big sword.
It's there forever.
It's there. And I don't know if we remove it and it causes Azeroth to die or I don't know, like if we're the cause of that. I don't know, but
right.
So we'll see more in this book. But anyway, I'm going off on a rabbit trail that we don't need to go down right now. So I'm cognizant of it, folks.
You are doing a good job. You have been getting
I will take
much
us
better.
Places.
I have had to edit out far less. But to an extent, it is a balance that they have to strike, right? Like, this should not be required reading to be able to play the expansion. At the same time, I think it's great to be able to fill in more story and more context into where we're going or where we've been in the lore. Because this is a huge universe, and there's
Yeah.
lots of stories to tell. There's lots of places to go, and I think part of it for me is the more opportunity I have to spend time in that place, I want to do that. So whether it's the comics, whether it's a novel, whether it's the audio stories that they did, the like the ones in Legion, all those things, the Warbringer shorts, right?
Oh yeah,
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
those
it.
were
And
good.
I don't see anybody complaining about those.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Shadows Rising novel now out for pre-order. Check it out for yourself. That will again be coming out on July 14th. You can read the little excerpt on Blizzard Watch, and you can check it out when it comes out. In connection to that, we also have another book that is coming out. This one probably less consequential. World of Warcraft Exploring Azeroth, the Eastern Kingdoms. This is, according to them, a book that is going to dive into some items that we've seen over the years, and probably a few other places that we know and love. The book, which it looks like is being authored by Golden, which you and I were talking about, is this like a children's Golden book?
That's what I thought. When I clicked on Golden, I'm like, that's the...
Is it that Golden? Is it Christy Golden? Like, is this what she's been doing instead? I thought she was busy running all these other games. So we don't quite know, but
yeah, we don't know.
There's not even an image, right? So we don't even know what the book looks like. But here is the description that I've just pulled up on Amazon. For over a quarter of a century, players of Warcraft and World of Warcraft have been treated to a treasure trove of artifacts, gear, weaponry, and trinkets of both awe and amusement. Now players can get an in-depth look at the items they have collected, and some they might not have just yet. With exquisite art and a framing story involving the no-nonsense Matthias Shaw and high-spirited Captain Flynn Fairwind, this book covers the continent of the Eastern Kingdom, from Stormwind to Stranglethorn, Plaguelands to Palaces, and all the lands in between. So, this could be a kid's book talking about our gear, but I feel like this is... I mean, if you're saying for over 25 years, I think your intended target audience for this is probably a little older.
Yeah, it's targeted for us, yes.
Maybe. So we'll find out.
They're just making a book for me. Big words, very few pages, a bunch of pictures.
60-point font. Make it huge. Easy to see. Yeah, so that's out for pre-order. The expected date for its release is October 20th, 2020. So I think as we talked about last time, that might track with BlizzCon. Sort of. So... that might be nice. September, October shaping up to be pretty rad. If this is what we're looking at, so that's great because fall is my jam, so I'm good with that. And now, Nav, it's time for us to jump into a topic here.
Yeah.
Which you know what? I'm gonna say this at the start. We're gonna do our best to have a constructive conversation here. We're gonna do our best to be open-minded and to learn, and listen, I may put my foot squarely in my mouth, and I'll admit that right up on the front. But we're going to have a little discussion here about an item we tossed out to the community. And, coming out of this, obviously, we'd love to get any and all feedback to this next part of the discussion. Should you want to shoot us a note or, send us some hate mail or whatever you want to do. So recently, and by recently I mean just a few days ago, had an article come out on Vice entitled Blizzard's Long History of Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls and Fear of Women. This is by Nico Dio, I apologize if I'm not getting that name right, who also goes by the Twitter handle Apple Cider Witch, who I think I've seen that one probably more often, as she has a connection to Blizzard Watch. So in this article, and Nav, you can correct me if I'm going sideways here, there was a pretty good takedown being given on how Blizzard, in this author's eyes, has historically viewed prominent female characters, as it says, and these sort of cookie cutter template that they feel has been used to create and then move these characters through the stories. And the examples that are given are Sarah Kerrigan, Sylvanas Windrunner, and Widowmaker from StarCraft, Warcraft, and Overwatch respectively, and how each of those three shares a similarity where at once they were good and then they were corrupted or tortured or something traumatic happened to them in some way, and then on the other side the nature of that character has changed. They are now purple and evil, and they are then used in a particular way. A lot of conversation going on around this article. I know when I read it, I certainly had some thoughts, and we tossed it out to the community to kind of get some feedback from folks, because I think for us, Nav, you and I, and we've talked about this before, is, this is a topic for which, you and I don't have insight into what it's like to be a woman, to understand a woman's perspective in storytelling. We only know what we know as two dudes that, consume this material. So I can't speak from that perspective. And I, there's no two ways about that. In reading this article, I felt that on one hand, there was some fair criticism to be had by this author. In that, and then let's all go back, when particularly StarCraft and Warcraft and then Diablo were created, you had a very small team of people, predominantly men, predominantly young men, coming forward and telling these stories. This was not I don't think, a proper writer's room. This was, a bunch of game developers and artists, I think, so to speak, that didn't necessarily have the kind of mature storytelling going on at the time that we look for nowadays. I think that we're looking more for, a professional writing room and people looking at, nuanced viewpoints and different types of storytelling and in-depth storytelling to get us to where we want to go. And so from that perspective, I think that there is a fair criticism to say, yes, there was a somewhat narrow view of storytelling, because for the most part, it was coming from Metzen and a few other folks, and it was very narrowly tailored. And I think that is a very fair criticism to give. The other side of that I see is that the main complaints that I see in this article that are given, I don't know that those are still as valid as they were probably earlier in time. Yes, there's always more ways to increase your inclusion. There's always more ways to expand your storytelling, to break out of certain tropes, if you want to call them those, to bring that kind of dynamism to the world that you bring to life in these games. But I don't know that there was enough credit given to the changes and advancements that are being made, that have been made, and how difficult that is, because there is some acknowledgement that, hey, there is a long-standing series of stories and games that exist, and it's hard to just turn that and go in a whole other direction. You do have to do that somewhat over time, but I don't know. There are some parts of this that I did not feel were quite fair. There were some wild generalizations that were being made. One of them, to be quite frank, was casting a light, saying that all of the women in Blizzard's arsenal were being viewed in a disposable way. I don't think that that's true at all. I think there are many other examples to point to that do not fit this mold. And I am not the author. Only the author can speak to their intention. But when you have tweets out there saying that, I go 3 rounds and a KO on their entire narrative history, like, to me, that's not trying to have a conversation about this and to then bring us to that next level of, hey, here's where we should go. It's, I'm just going to this is just me. I'm just gonna shit all over this, and haha, I did it. That's kind of the feeling I got out of it, and I don't know. I don't know that that's necessarily where I would have gone. But again, this is not my viewpoint. This is the author. They're free to do as they want. But I think that having motivation, having tragedy to build a character, I think makes them more interesting. And I think that some of the motivations that are attributed to these characters is what makes them a great part of the story. Sylvanas, I think, probably has one of the most in-depth stories now of anyone in Warcraft, save the Lich King. Again, I don't know that at this point in time the entire narrative that's given here is fair. What do you think, Ned?
I'm going to it's the only thing that I can think of it off the top of my head, and I'm going to go with an old Obi-Wan line. From a certain point of view, you're going to find many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. So I read this article 3 or 4 times, and I was trying to figure out, I was trying to truly understand what the author was trying to convey with, Blizzard's trope of how they like to use the torture method, the bitchify method, so on and so forth to create these characters. But all that I felt was being described was, well, you're describing how typically villains are created. And they have the villains. Okay, so I can't speak on Overwatch because I don't care about Overwatch. But if we're going to talk about Sylvanas, let's just, I can focus on Sylvanas because that's, I do Warcraft. I like Warcraft. I don't have a lot of StarCraft experience, so on and so forth. But I understand the Kerrigan storyline. I know the Kerrigan storyline from the cutscenes in StarCraft and whatnot. But with Sylvanas, she was, the story was that she was the Ranger General, and she came in conflict with Arthas. Arthas took her soul. She underwent, in the book, she underwent the torture, and she became the Banshee Queen, and, then she went down this road of, again, trying to come up with some meaningful afterlife for her because her soul was stripped from her. And now the nice thing, calling her a villain, sure, that's fine, but villains are the heroes of their own stories. I also feel that it's kind of more challenging to write the villain because the villain has to be stronger than our heroes. The villain has to have, I don't know. There's more narrative, I believe, with the villain character, the villain archetype. I feel like Blizzard does a pretty good job with what they're, with how they're telling the story. And it's really tough with World of Warcraft because we're given stories in segments across the span of an expansion, throughout time, and we've seen Sylvanas develop, and then we saw her at the beginning of the expansion, burning down the tree, starting and igniting a war, which we didn't quite understand why, and without getting too spoilery, we're not going to find out why with her intentions till we get into Shadowlands. And at the end of it, there is still a human factor to Sylvanas, and it's you get it in very rare forms, like when she's conversing with Nathanos and things of that nature. But this, without going into a comparison model, we're not doing that. Basically, what was outlined in that article was this is typically how villains are created. I mean, Blizzard has characters that have taken on the point of villains, but I don't know how you are going to take that story of that character, develop her into an evil character without some sort of trauma or reason on the back end. And the trauma doesn't have to be great. But for example, Lady Ashvane, for example, she was a strong character. I felt she was a very strong character in the storyline. She drove a lot of, the betrayal of Catherine Proudmoore, and then Ashara turned her and then made her a weapon of, there was a bargain that was made, and so she was turned there. But I'm trying to. I know I'm admittedly, folks, I'm tiptoeing here because I don't want to offend. I'm just trying to take a different stance here with villains. Don't necessarily, they don't have to be the blue, or they don't have to be, the whole sexy thing that they put out there. For example, okay, so let's take for example Tyrande. To us, she's a hero class, but what about the other side? Is the other side going, Tyrande's really cool, she's a hero class, or is now she's the Nightwear, now is she a villain too? I mean, because she's taken this rise of power, but and in her own right, she's had to deal with some trauma, some torture, watching the dragon die, and so on and so forth there. But I thought the article was a little, I don't know, I thought it had a little bit of a clickbaity title to it. I will admit that. I thought it was a clickbaity title on Vice, and I don't really like the whole pixie trope. I'm gonna go that. I just don't like when they label things as that. I think it's a little bit overused.
And admittedly, we come from a very different viewpoint than I think this author does, and that that's part of having a conversation, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's these types of conversation starters that I think are good. Whether or not, and I'll say this, whether or not I agree with everything that's in that article, I always think it's healthy to have these conversations, because you can have differing viewpoints. You can kind of see where the dust settles, I guess, if there were, a more robust conversation out there in the community as to, things that Blizzard could pick up on and say, hey, maybe we're thinking about something. This might inform a decision that we can make later down the road when we're developing this, or we're thinking about this, to say, maybe we are following this too much, or maybe we could do something a little differently than we have in the past. So I think that is a healthy part of our community, or can be, is having these kinds of discussions. We're trying to find a balance to having this discussion. And in doing that, we have reached out to the community to say, hey, anybody that's got some thoughts on this, would you mind sharing them with us? I know I had a response on Twitter, but you had a couple of good responses that you received, and if you have the permission to share those, let's go ahead and share those now.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation. I had a conversation in a different Discord channel, and there were some points that were brought up, and I thought they were really good. So I asked the two individuals who happen to be female, and I said, "Hey, listen, I thought your take on this was constructive, and it's I'd like to have your permission to use it on our podcast. It's a couple of dudes talking about something. We wanted a little bit of a female perspective feedback on it." And so the first comment I got was from Mochteld, who said, part of writing good female characters is making them flawed and fallible. Give them depth, preferably without gratuitous rape. Let them be angry, selfish, and all of those emotions good girls can't show. Let them be heroes, villains, sidekicks, and civilians. And, look at Talanji, for example, or Catherine Proudmoore, Tracer, and Ashvane, the ones that we've talked about. And then, the whole point of feminism is that women can be heroes or villains. It's, that's the best part about that. The other feedback I got was from Mibble, who said, the Vice article seems to be constructing controversy where there really isn't any. Blizzard is not the worst offender when it comes to sexist tropes. I found the storytelling pretty good, especially over the past few expansions. And while the initial Sylvanas did perhaps fall into the too common rapey objectified women victim trope, her evolution as an empowered, interesting, complicated, self-actualized character and horde leader hasn't seemed sexist to me. As a mother of two daughters, one who is a Marine, I'm pretty sensitive to objectified portrayals of women as victims. This whole expansion has given us three incredibly empowered female characters with Jaina, Sylvanas, and Ashara. I agree. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, on one hand, you've got, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say that. You didn't cherry pick the three characters, but this whole article was I feel like the article was driven by a Twitter post that stated, why are all these ranged characters, the same type of character? And it says, has anyone else noticed that woman who is a long-range fighter gets tortured into becoming an evil villain who is also blue and purple is a reoccurring trope in Blizzard stories? They're out to make video games, folks. They're there to make video games. It's not, hey, here is our story, and we're gonna build a video game around it. No, they got the video game, and now they're trying to put the story in, and sometimes they have a lot of hits and they have a lot of misses. Is this a miss? I don't feel it is, because I feel like they do a pretty good job with their storytelling, and I like these characters. It's fun. No, it's not fun. Are we suffering from Sylvanas fatigue? Absolutely, we're suffering from Sylvanas fatigue. It's a thing. Yeah. Do I think she's a cool character? Yes. Do I think she has a cool backstory? Absolutely. I think she's one of the best written characters that they have so far, and it shows. I mean, her story has been continuing on and on and on. So it's and they keep developing for it. But yeah, it's really I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, folks. It's tough to talk and discuss this in a woke internet society where anything we say is subject to, oh, here come the pitchforks, you bastards. It's okay. So
and that's okay. And
yeah,
we are all free to disagree. That's
absolutely
that's part of how this goes. And I think that for us, we're not attacking anybody. I'm not saying anything about this author. This is her viewpoint. This is how she feels about these things, and it is a conversation starter within the community, of which we are engaging in that conversation in the way that we can, because we have a podcast, and this is how we're looking at it. So that is how I will sort of couch this discussion, and frankly any discussion that we have on here. I think we always try to be fair when it comes to issues like this. And so to that end, right, like this article, if I'm understanding it correctly, and I am open to being corrected on this, is that there is a belief of a common series of events that happens to villains, specifically women, within Blizzard franchises, and that it's taking their good character, having something horrific happen to them, changing their character, and then making them fit within a sexy purple mold kind of thing. And that perhaps at the end of the article, it says villains don't always need to be tragic. They don't have to be written as good people to be memorable or sympathetic, but they do still have to be written as people, and that's just not how any of Blizzard's narratives see women. To me, I feel like that is unfair, because that is a blanket statement to include any. Now we're talking about any. So basically, we're saying that there are no women characters within these franchises that have any of the good qualities that they're looking for. And I don't believe that kind of overgenerality is correct or fair in this instance, particularly when there is the depth and breadth of characters that exist in the Blizzard universe. Now, can they do a better job of diving into these things? Yes, and I think going back to the earlier part of our discussion, I think that's what the novels are great for. That's what the ancillary materials are great for, because it helps build that narrative around these characters. And you mentioned Kerrigan earlier. Kerrigan in StarCraft did not have some kind of robust story in the original StarCraft. She, was this character who was, as you pointed out, a long-range character, was a sniper. She was a ghost, essentially.
A ghost.
And in StarCraft, a sniper sort of character. And she was left for dead. She was captured by the Zerg. She came back as the Queen of Blades, and then she just wreaked havoc and just demolished shit, right? And she was very powerful. In StarCraft 2, you can argue that the story wasn't satisfying in the sense that, and I get this, how was the connection between Kerrigan and James Raynor so strong, considering they didn't really know each other that long, and then all of this comes out of this very brief relationship? Listen, people have done crazy things over short-term relationships since the beginning of time. So there's something to be said for that. But I thought that the expansion of her story through StarCraft II was very compelling. And again, maybe that's because I have a different perspective as a man, and this is how it caters more towards my vision of storytelling. I can accept that. But I think that's sort of counter to what's going on in this article, where the argument is flipped, that it was better without StarCraft II. I think it's better with, because then you're getting a sense of where this character has gone, where she came from, why she's doing what. Like, I appreciate trying to understand these motivations and being in a place of hurt or being in a place of loss and moving from that and the different directions that you can take from that. Sylvanas throwing herself off the top of Icecrown. If I read that correctly, it's because she had lost her chance at vengeance against Arthas, that somebody else, the Alliance, I believe, had killed Arthas and then supplanted him with somebody else. She had lost her chance. She felt lost and felt it was over. That is a very believable story. That people would feel lost, that their chance at redemption was gone, and that they decided to end everything. That to me was very powerful. But people can read that different ways. So I think it is an important conversation to have in our community. I think that there are definitely some items in this article that I do not agree with, but there are some criticisms with which I do agree with. So the article, again, Blizzard's long history of manic pixie nightmare girls and fear of women. This is up on Vice.com. You can read it, check it out for yourself, and, feel challenged by it. See where you go. See how you feel. See what you think about that. And, again, I think that's part of the larger discussion that we can have. Before we move on from this, anything else you want to touch on here, Nav?
No, you summed it up. You summed it up really nicely there. Yeah, it was just, I was doing more in-depth thought about Sylvanas and how, she still does have some, the storytelling for that character has been taken outside of the game, and those little, like you had mentioned, those little web stories in Webinar where you see, the Three Sisters, for example, where
the comics.
Yeah, the comics where she was going to murder her sisters if they didn't go along with it, but then she decided no. It's like, so there are little human elements left of her, or not human, but the live side, the living side, and but you summed it up nicely. So
very good.
We're good.
Very good. All right. So moving on, we had another article we were going to touch on here briefly. Was that this is a Polygon article about a recent hire that was made by Blizzard, and apparently, not a name that I necessarily know, but it got some traction, and it's a fairly big deal, apparently. So, veteran game developer Rod Ferguson has been hired by Blizzard to take over at the Diablo 4 station. My understanding is that Rod has a background with the Gears of War franchise, the BioShock franchise, and a few others, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Nav, but I believe that this gentleman is somewhat known as either the fixer or the closer or something, giving a lot of people the impression that potentially he's being brought in to push Diablo 4 across the line.
I don't know. It seems like we keep spinning the wheels with Diablo. Like, things aren't getting, they had a strong showing this past BlizzCon for Diablo. But it's I will say that there are times in life where projects just keep, the wheels spinning and nothing is gaining traction. So
yeah,
I think that he's brought on board to absolutely, yes, get this across the finish line and get it published. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, reading through his sort of list of accomplishments, it seems like he has a pretty good track record in terms of development. So hopefully this is a good move for them, because it does seem like Diablo, as you said, Diablo's been in not a great space for quite some time. They've had multiple game directors in recent years. They've started working on expansions and then stopped and then restarted, and it's they have to be all in it with Diablo 4 now. They've announced it. There's a trailer. Like there's no going back now. But if they're having to hire somebody of this, I guess, known quantity or quality to come in and help. I mean, that honestly kind of makes me worried a little bit about what's going on with Diablo. At the same time, I guess it's good that they recognize they have a blind spot somewhere. But there was an article a couple years ago on Kotaku talking about how they were trying to get something out for Diablo like this year, and so people were wondering, oh, is this mean that Diablo 4 is coming out this year? I don't think Diablo 4 is coming around for like a couple of years, so I don't know if we're necessarily towards the end or if it's we need a Kevin Feige, right? We need somebody with a long view vision that can help us map out where we want to go.
Yeah, no, it's tough because you could easily just on one hand say, you know what, Diablo has their story, they have their game type, just put out another game. And they go, if Blizzard did that, if Blizzard just took what was Diablo 3 or Diablo and just remastered it or something, people would bitch and complain about that. It's Blizzard is in a no-win situation because they're trying to make it the new Diablo game, but they're also trying to add some different flavor to it, I imagine. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where they're getting, I don't know if they're getting hung up there or what, or if they're trying to tell a story to go in one direction, or, you know, the framework of the game is there, but they don't want to put out the same old. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to add something new, some new flavors. And I think that's where it's getting hung up. You know, it's trying to decide, what should we put in this game? What should we do with this game? What do people like from the past games? What do people dislike about this game? You know, the present time. It's just, the more I think about game development, the more I'm just like, thank God I'm not in that business, because it sounds like, I mean, honest to God, it sounds very, very tiring and frustrating. And you have to be in a certain mindset, I guess, to, you know, work on something for hundreds of hours only to have it change at the last second going, hey, we're not going that way. We're going to do something else different now at this point. You know, but it'll be interesting to see. They got 2 new Microsoft guys there, and we'll see what happens. So
maybe this is just the secret ingredient they needed to.
Yeah, they just need a couple Microsoft guys.
Oh boy, all the Apple guys out there collecting.
Yeah, I know.
So a couple of items left to talk about real quick before we go. The first is a follow-up from our last episode, and Nav, you and I are in great exaltation because Limit, congratulations, Complexity Limit, world first N'Zoth.
Yep.
The Harlem Globetrotters finally lost one game. The Patriots are not in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So we did track this for a little bit, and you and I were talking while this was going on, and we talked about this last time, was that the Method, if you just go by streaming numbers, Method was blowing Limit out of the water. Like, they had 5-6 times as many viewers watching their stream. Like, only a few thousand people were watching Limit. When Limit was on the final kill, when they were on the final pull, I think there were 150 to 200,000 people watching that stream at that time.
Yeah, we were watching it live.
So they pulled it up big time, and people were interested in it at that point. So I was very happy to see that for them. But yes, Limit pulls through with the world first kill on N'Zoth. 273 pulls on N'Zoth.
Wow.
By far and away the most they had on any boss. They, I think, more than doubled, almost tripled their next closest, which was 100 pulls on Il'gynoth. So N'Zoth, no joke. And I know watching it, I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this fight.
Yeah.
There's none chance.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this is insane. So Method, you know, they Method did their thing, and they shortly followed up. Limit, I thought, had a really nice tongue-in-cheek tweet. They were selling a world first shirt, and they kind of poked fun at Method for already having been selling world first shirts, and so they kind of said, you know, hey, just in case you bought the other one, you could buy this one instead, because we actually got it. So congratulations to Limit. Very happy to see that. And Nav, maybe now we can pay more attention to this, because it's an actual race.
Yeah, it was fun. I as much as I didn't care about it, I ended up watching it over and over again. And I have to say that I enjoyed watching the complexity limit coverage over the method coverage, just mainly because of the raid leads that they had, and just listening to how calm and collect those guys are. That was something else. People weren't screaming and hollering at everybody, and it's just, there was a little bit of humor in there. I mean, they're very good broadcasters. They're like, oh no, we only have to, we have to worry about corruption, but oh Jesus, the guy who's getting it is really bad at this, and it's like just crack it up. It's great. So
yeah, they were definitely loose, and it was great to see that. So
yeah,
on behalf of the Unshackled Fury podcast, congratulations to Complexity Limit and to all the competitors out there. Looking forward to the next race to world firsts, probably towards the fall or maybe
it'll probably
winter
be
time
January. Yeah, I think, right?
Somewhere later this year, hopefully. Well, if it's September, let's say September Shadowlands, October, November.
October, maybe, when the first raid drops. Yeah, okay.
Somewhere out there. So look forward to that later in the year, but congratulations to all. And last but not least, just wanted to throw in a quick plug here. I was on the Frazzlecast this past week with our good buddy Frazzly, episode 145. Went on to his stream, which he later released out also as a podcast. And we talked about a whole bunch of different stuff, about what gets us going creatively and why we still play. And we had some moments of zen, and I might have even sang a little bit at his request.
Right.
So, it had a little bit of everything. So we were having a good time, and always a good time talking to Fraz. And so if you haven't checked it out, please go out there and download Frazzlecast episode 145. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode. I think we've done enough damage today.
Yeah.
Other than this fine program, where can the good people find you on the internet, Nevox?
You can find me out on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at NAV_OX.
As for me, you can always find me on Twitter at Berserker Rage, and this show at Unshackled_Fury. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise at unshackledfuryshow@gmail.com. And you can find this show on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Google Play. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.